Hi, and welcome everybody. It's Monday, October 25th. And once again, every Monday, I'm joined by Mr. Doug Upstone at DocSports.com. I'm Ross Benjamin of RBWins.com. It's our college football betting edition. Doug, how was your weekend?
Well, Ross, from a betting standpoint, it was quite good. Had a wonderful day in the NFL at 4-1 and made up for the week before. So that was real positive, and had a winning weekend overall in college football, hitting my big play of the week. So, it's all good. And this weekend, oh, daddy. Okay. We got a lot of good games coming up this weekend.
Absolutely. Last week's card lacked that the pizzazz of some good games. But one thing I did recognize, and I never do well when this happens. I went 2-3 in college football on Saturday, but the unranked favorites against ranked underdogs, the ranked underdogs ended up covering 4 of the 5 matchups. And 3-1 is to be exact. The other one that comes to mind is the Army Wake Forest game, which was my free play. And I just could not understand, as I said on the show last week, how is Wake Forest only a 3-point favorite? Number 16 team in the country, 7-0, and they're taking on an Army team that's lost 2 straight games. And lo and behold, Wake Forest made me eat my words because they win the game 70-56. Very rare, Doug, when you can score 56 points, have over 500 yards of total offense with an underdog and end up losing and not covering.
Yeah, that was, I watched most of the game because as you said, we did the video on Monday. And so then as I went along with the week, that actually became one of my plays, which was on Army. And so, it was a weird game because neither team could stop the other at all.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was just remarkable. And, Army also had, if you went into the game, if we were sitting here last week and I said, hey, Ross, you know what? I'm going to say Army's going to score 56 and they're going to have over 400 yards rushing, totally control the time of possession. What do you think? Does that sound like a good bet to you?
I would empty the bank, my man, because I did predict Army was going to have 40 or more minutes of total possession, which they did. Unfortunately, with their 18 minutes of possession, I don't believe Wake Forest punted throughout the whole game. And I think they may have scored on all 10 of their possessions, and not only scored touchdowns on all 10 of their possessions.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just one other thing, Doug. I'd be a little concerned as a Wake Forest fan going forward. Yes, you're 7-0. Yes, you're up to number 12 in the country, and deservedly so. Okay, but you've given up the last 2 weeks 500 plus yards to Syracuse. You needed overtime to win that game, and you give up 56 points, over 400 yards rushing, over 500 yards of total offense. And the Army even passed for over 100 yards in that game on top of that, Doug. So if you would have told me they would have ran for 400 and passed for 100, I would have not only emptied my bankroll, I would have been asking you for a loan on yours to put more money down. So anyway.
And from the Army standpoint, I have not looked at the rest of their schedule, but I tell you what, if they face a team that has even one receiver that can run under five flat in the 40, okay, I would take those safeties and I would put them 40 yards back because they split those safeties and cornerbacks the entire game. It was ludicrous how bad it was. The one time Army, I think, had the ball for 14 plays, went down the field and scored, kicked off the end zone. First play, Roberson, I think it was, but split the safeties, by 10 yards, throws the ball up in the air, touchdown. So, two scores in about 10 seconds, and Army gets the ball back and goes and scores again. It was a bizarre football game. But that's college football.
You know what? And this is why you can't always go by statistics. Army was number 10 in total defense in the country going into that game. Now, granted, they did not play a murderous schedule by any stretch of the imagination, but still, who saw that coming? If you said that Wake was going to get 70 points in that game, I would have told you I would have paid for your next doctor's visit. and hope he referred you to a mental health specialist. Anyway,
Well, the other thing, one last thing is that one of the touchdowns for Wake Forest was on a fake field goal attempt by Army that they threw the ball that was intercepted and returned 83 yards, Ross.
yeah, yeah.
It was
Yeah,
nuts.
and that's hard to overcome when you have the underdog,
Yes.
because it's if you would have tried to field goal and made it, you're looking at a 10-point swing right there, and when you got an underdog, those are very difficult to overcome. But at the end of the day, look, Wake Forest deserved to win the game. I mean, when
Yes.
you pile up that many yards and points, and Army didn't deserve to win, they couldn't get a stop. Their athleticism in the back end is sorely lacking, as Doug just touched upon. And I think me and Doug could have lined up on the outside and split the safeties last Saturday. Doug, you had some other things you wanted to talk about in terms of this upcoming schedule.
Yeah, Ross, like you said, last week was kind of a little bit doggy in terms of, big games. Well, that's not going to be the case this week. Now, not everybody's going to be undefeated like Michigan and Michigan State, which seems to be the highlight, of the biggest games. But I mean, you got the Iowa-Wisconsin game that's likely to decide the Big Ten West. Pittsburgh, okay, off the big game, okay, against Clemson. Going to be home again, but they're going to play Miami. Okay, Miami. We know not to trust Miami, but I also think we also know that Pittsburgh. Now, I think this team is different. I really do.
Yeah.
But is it for sure? And especially after the big win. Okay, Texas and Baylor. A very interesting game. Of course, Georgia and Florida. Now, Georgia is I think I saw or read that this is the most points Georgia's ever been favored by against Florida. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's correct at -14. Ole Miss and Auburn. Okay, another huge game. Even though it's not as attractive as what it sounds, Penn State, Ohio State. Okay, another one. So, it's going to be a fun Saturday. That we know for sure.
Yeah, some interesting lines there too. It jumped out right at me that Ohio State, an 18.5-point favorite against Penn State, leads me to believe that Sean Clifford isn't right. And I know he got hurt in the Iowa game and had to leave for the rest of the game. He did play some last week. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug. But
played almost the entire game.
Yeah, it just it's mind-boggling when I look at that line. So when that usually happens, I look to go the contrarian approach. But after last week, I have to assess things a little more. And you mentioned a couple other games. Iowa, who was number 2 in the country 2 weeks ago before losing to number 4. Iowa lost.
They lost to Purdue.
They lost to Purdue as the number 2 team in the country. And now they come back and they're playing a 3-loss Wisconsin team. Granted, Wisconsin's won 3 in a row, and they did beat Purdue last week. The lone loss for Iowa, but Wisconsin is a 3-point favorite in the game. Scratch my head a little bit. And the other game is that Auburn game. I believe Auburn's a 2.5-point home favorite, if I'm not mistaken, against number 9 Ole Miss. So again, we have a trio to 4 or 5 games that you're looking at ranked teams that don't seem to be getting the respect against unranked teams. But we saw that panned out last week. The ranked teams did very well in that situation. Anyway, Doug, you got a free play in the big game in the state of Michigan at East Lansing, Michigan, where the Michigan State Spartans, the undefeated Michigan State Spartans, host the undefeated Michigan Wolverines. Right now, if you're looking at various sports book, you're seeing Michigan is either a 4 or 4.5-point road favorite. Doug, what's your take on this game?
Well, there's been some heated games in this rivalry over the years, but for the first time in 114 years, they have 2 teams that are undefeated this late in the season playing each other. So, it is going to be wild. And people, if you're not from the Midwest and, of course you hear so much about Ohio State and Michigan, and that rivalry deserves everything, all the accolades. But this one, okay, there's a lot of hatred here. I mean, not that there isn't at the other ones, but this is truly 2 teams that don't like each other. And in recent times, since the turn of the century, straight up, Michigan is 11-10 against Michigan State. Now, some people might be surprised at that, but Mark D'Antonio did a great job, okay, over those years with his time at Michigan State, and really, even the lines, even the score, I should say, in these games. Now, they said the total though has jumped up. It did open at 3 for Michigan, and it moved to 4.5. Now, both of these teams, their biggest difference this year has to do with coaching. Okay, Jim Harbaugh went out and got all basically brand new assistants, all younger assistants with a different point of view, okay, and a much more aggressive point of view. And we're seeing that Michigan is back to being a physical football team, running the ball, very well, and having enough passing, not a lot, but enough passing. And Mel Tucker, then in his second year at Michigan State, he also has this was right from the get-go. You saw them against Northwestern. They just thumped Northwestern with their physicality, went right at them, which you don't usually see too much against the Pat Fitzgerald team. And that became their MO. Plus, they're also a better passing team. I think they gain about 60 more yards passing than what Michigan does. The thing, though, for me has to do with the defenses. Both teams in this case are in the top 20 in fewest points allowed. Okay, so that's excellent. But in total defense, Michigan is 12th overall. Michigan State is 88th, Ross. So I look at this as to say, if those things hold true, which I think they should, is that Michigan will probably get more 3 and outs, or maybe give up 1 first down, and they're going to win the field position battle. Okay, and so that's how I'm looking at this game. And and in this case, all we need is a 1 touchdown difference, okay, or 2 field goals if that's the case. So I'm going to take the Michigan Wolverines to win and cover at East Lansing this weekend.
I can't disagree with that. And stop and think about it, folks. If they're a 4.5 point favorite on the road, that means that they would have been a 10 or 10.5 point favorite at home in the game between 2 undefeated teams that on paper looks like it's a pretty even matchup. But the thing, I was talking to fellow sports handicapper Chip Chirimbus before I came on the show, and we were talking about this game. And I said, Chip, I just think Michigan is better balanced between offense and defense compared to Michigan State. I know the points per game seem to be deceiving, and I agree. I just think that my eye test tells me that Michigan is the better team. Now, having said that, the better team doesn't always win and cover. So we'll see what happens. But I can't disagree. If I was to make a play, and if I make a play on this game, I'm certainly going to agree with Doug Upstone of DocSports.com and take the Michigan Wolverines -4, 4.5, whatever you get it at, folks. If you get it at 4.5, buy it down to 4. The juice only counts when you lose. Okay, so Doug likes Michigan -4 at Michigan State. Before we get to my free pick, folks, just a friendly reminder. I like to thank each and every one of you viewing. We've been getting a tremendous amount of support, I should say, on these videos, especially the ones with me and Doug. Our college football videos, the views have gone through the roof, and we really appreciate your support, you viewing, and your feedback. I mean, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing with us, okay, as far as what our picks are. Where I will draw the line is when you start getting abusive, okay, when you start attacking either one of us on a personal level. There's no place for that. The other viewers don't want to hear it. So again, folks, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing. We encourage your feedback, but use your discretion a little bit. In any event, if you have not subscribed, please do so. It's absolutely free. While you're there, hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our sports betting videos going up on this channel. BC at Syracuse, Doug. Syracuse right now, a 5-point favorite. The Orange finally got over the hump last week after losing 3 consecutive games by 3 points. They go on the road as a 3.5 point dog, and they defeat Virginia Tech. Let's take a look at BC. They opened the season 4-0, and since that time, they've lost their last 3 games, and they've scored 14 points or fewer in each one of those contests. Additionally, when you look at who they beat this year, they've beaten UMass, Temple, Missouri, and Missouri was in overtime, and they also played FCS team Colgate in their season opener. If we look at just UMass, Temple, and Missouri that plays at the FBS level, those three teams have gone a combined 5-14 versus fellow FBS opponents this year. So my point being is they're a very deceiving 4-3, and they've shown their true colors over the last three games. And quite frankly, against a Missouri team that can't stop anybody, BC was lucky to come away with that overtime win at home. Now, having said that, on the other side of the coin, we got a Syracuse team that's only 4-4. But as I alluded to, 3 or 4 losses came prior to the win against Virginia Tech. All 3 came by exactly 3 points. They lose to Clemson by 3 at home when they missed a 41-yard field goal with no time left to tie the game. And that was by a former Lou Groza award-winning kicker. And also lose on the last play of the game against Florida State on a field goal. And the other game escapes me, but they lost that by 3. Wake Forest in overtime.
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, to say that they played a tougher schedule of the two is an understatement. Now, I really, really like, Doug, since they made the quarterback change to Garrett Schrader. By the way, former starter who started the first 3 games, I believe, of the year, Tommy DeVito, he entered the transfer portal last week, which is no shock, right? I mean, that's what these kids do these days. They get benched and then they cry and they want to go elsewhere. So in any event, I really like the offensive identity of Syracuse right now. Dino Babers has been well known to want to play really fast tempo, want to throw the ball vertically, want to do those short little wide receiver screens as his running plays. You got to give him credit. He's got away from that. He sees the strength of his team. Sean Tucker is the number 2 leading rusher in college football for Syracuse. Garrett Schrader has gone over 100 yards, I think, in 4 of 5 starts, 160 yards or something like that last week on the ground, 230-something yards passing. Remember, this was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school that went to Mississippi State and only left Mississippi State because Mike Leach took over, and he's not your prototypical drop back passer, Schrader. His passing certainly needs some fine tuning, but he's much improved in that area, but he's one heck of a dynamic runner. And I just think Syracuse is the better team in this matchup. I think they gained some momentum and confidence from that win last week. And as I alluded to with Boston College, an extremely deceiving 4-3 record. I'm going to lay the 5 points here with the Syracuse Orange over the Boston College Eagles. Repeating again, folks, Doug Upstone likes Michigan -4 on the road at Michigan State. Ross Benjamin, yours truly, Syracuse -5 at home against Boston College. Doug, tell the folks what you got coming up at Doc Sports, or your 4C got coming up at Doc Sports this coming week.
Yeah, Ross, obviously, like I mentioned, we have a number of top games, so that will be what I'll be doing between now and the weekend, is going over all those games, coming off another winning weekend in football, both in college and the NFL. And so now last 7 weeks, 37-25, okay, is the record, and up a little over $4,000 based on units. So it's been again another good run, for the season, how things are going along. And now it's going to be Halloween, I'm hoping for no tricks or treats. I hope that was a couple of weeks ago, and so that we can have a really successful weekend yet again, and have some World Series action, okay, to follow as well, with especially with one surprise team, the Atlanta Braves. So I'm looking forward to another fun week, Ross, and I'm sure you are too.
I am coming off a 2-1 day in the NFL yesterday. I had winners on the Tampa Bay Bucks. And also I took the Atlanta Falcons on the money line, who are a 2-point winner. And boy, oh boy, I'm glad I took the money line, Doug, because they were either -2 or 2.5. Folks, we don't hesitate to lay 130, 135 in baseball. You shouldn't hesitate to lay that number on a small favorite in the NFL. And as you can see, it paid dividends for me yesterday by doing so. A little bit of a rough go again in college football, 2-3, lost a tough one on Fresno State, where Nevada went 90 yards in the last 53 seconds with no timeout, scored a touchdown with 2 seconds to go. And of course, they missed the 2. just a little bit of tough luck, but I'm sure I'm going to finish the year strong. As Doug alluded to, Major League Baseball, the World Series coming up. Have had a fine year in Major League Baseball, especially with my 10-star top plays, 40 and 22 on the year, good for 65%. And my NBA off to a 3-2 start. And for those of you who followed me last year, know I finished number 6 in the NBA. Don't forget to take a look at docsports.com, where Doug is located. Great handicappers on his site, and one of the best, and without offending anybody else in that group, is Doug Upstone. So we're very fortunate to have him on our podcast. And as you can see, we've done very well, 11-5 over the last 4 weeks with our free picks. Doug bailed me out last week with a 2-0. I went 0-2. 2 weeks before that, it was the opposite. But at the end of the day, folks, we're 11-5 the last 4 weeks with our free picks in college football and the NFL. Not too shabby. Until the next time, for Doug Upstone, I'm Ross Benjamin. I'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Good luck and God bless.